I'm so glad you asked. Okay, give me just 1 second. I have some notes, some thoughts. Okay, so when it comes to the Spider-Man mythos, we've seen a lot of recycled villains and characters and story arcs. Here is my fully phased out plan that Sony could use to completely lay out their own cinematic universe with only using Spider-Man. He has like a tremendous rogues gallery. I mean, we still haven't seen Kraven the Hunter on film. We haven't seen Tombstone really in any large capacity, like outside of the TV show. Like, we need to get in some deep cuts. Madam Web, like there's so many things. So let's see. Okay, so we're gonna start here. So my proposal for phase one, they have Peter Parker, and it's a lot of the greatest hits, basically. Some of the things that we've seen before, like, okay, great, he's in high school, but as the movies go on, he progresses in age, and we see him grow up, and that's something that they have a problem with when it comes to telling the Peter Parker story. Basically, he stays a teenager, then he kind of grows up, and then they kind of cap him off, and then they start a new title. This will solve that problem. So we start out in high school, okay? He's in high school, he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, he gets all of these superpowers, right? And then he comes in contact with his first major villain, student loans. So he's trying to get into college and he's trying to make money. And so he's kind of battling with how he becomes a hero, but also, save the day and become a person, because that's been the constant struggle with Peter Parker. And so we see him take on all these odd jobs that further expand the universe. So, for example, one of his internships would be with Doc Connors. And we're just teasing Doc Connors just a little bit. We're not going to do the same thing that we did with the first Spider-Man trilogy, where we never really see the Lizard like fully formed, but we're just going to tease him. He's going to intern with him, right? And that's going to be one of his first jobs, because we all know you don't have a Peter Parker without struggling in finances. And he's trying to get into college. And so when he does that, the first villain that we actually run into is Chameleon, okay? So we see Peter Parker, and then he's already Spider-Man because, we've seen Spider-Verse. We've heard enough origin stories. So we're going to start with him being that. But then he starts noticing there's this guy on TV, and he's like, wait, that's me. And he's like freaking out. And so we find out that's a Chameleon. He's been taking over and like making money as Spider-Man, even though, fun fact, in the original comics, he actually wasn't able to cash his checks because he couldn't reveal his secret identity. That's how banks work. And so he starts trying to find out who this guy is, and then he starts to find out that he's not only trying to take over Spider-Man's identity, he's trying to like make some really big like political moves, like with the new mayor, who at the time is actually going to be J. Jonah Jameson, because he does eventually run for mayor. But we're gonna get to that because he's already head up at the Bugle, and so then afterwards, J. Jonah Jameson is going to have his life be ultimately saved by Spider-Man, but he's going to think it was threatened by Spider-Man. And that's where their tension begins. But again, this is a lot of Spider-Man 101, but we're kind of reinventing it just a little bit. Then in the second movie, Doc Connors, the Lizard. Now we're going to go full on crocodile lizard this time, okay? And he is going to be like almost, it's going to feel like a monster movie with Spider-Man, because that's one of the things that the other like MCU movies have, is they have the variety, okay? So not every single movie feels the same, but what we're going to do is we're going to have him be that, but we're also going to introduce Gwen Stacy. So we're going to have the first love interest, right? And so Gwen Stacy's going to be there, and they're going to be so in love, and it's going to be so great, and he's going to reveal his secret identity, and they are just the best power couple, okay? And so when we establish that relationship, we have the classic Parker tension of him trying to balance his life as Spider-Man and his life as Spider-Man. Or the other way around, Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And so, meanwhile, while all of this is happening, Harry Osborn starts entering the picture. Very subtly, he's running for class president, okay? And so we start to see Parker. He's like, okay, or not Parker. We start to see Harry Osborn, and we're like, okay, this guy, we're familiar with him, but he looks a little. He's behaving differently than we're used to Harry Osborn. He's acting very much in line to what his dad acts like. And so it was just like, oh, so maybe we're getting a different Harry Osborn in this picture. And so meanwhile, Parker is also trying to run for class president, and that's going to be just a fun treat in itself. Like, come on, Parker running for class president, like he's just the lowest. Like, who's gonna see that? And he's gonna win. And so now he has 3 things. He has class presidency, Spider-Man, and trying to make enough money to be able to go to this college that Doc Connors is telling him that he is a shoo-in for. Meanwhile, Doc Connors is turning into a lizard. And it's just gonna be like such a delight to see. Just you have a lot of things happening, and of course we're gonna have some amazing, pun always intended, Spider-Man feats. Like we're gonna get him like lifting himself out of that crashing like water vault, and we're also gonna get a lot of like other task forces developing around trying to take Spider-Man down, which J. Jonah Jameson will unwittingly be creating most of Spider-Man's rogues gallery out of this. So from there, they're going to accidentally invent Rhino. They're going to accidentally invent Scorpion, which J. Jonah Jameson has a direct hand in doing. And they're also going to accidentally create Shocker and all these other things because this is a task force of special ops people who were recruited specifically to take down Spider-Man. Because, J. Jonah Jameson thinks that Spider-Man is a threat and a menace. So the end of the second movie ends with, a very heartfelt moment between Parker and Doc Connors and him basically inventing and finding a cure for him. And once they do that, we start seeing steps for the Sinister Six, right? So that's the end of the second movie. Still a lot of cliffhangers, but remember, this is just phase 1. So in the third movie, the penultimate, if you will, of phase 1, we basically get a iteration of the Sinister Six. So like I said, we have Rhino, we have Shocker, and we have not the Lizard because, Doc Connors he's not a bad guy, but like he was just trying to, replace a limb and just an experiment gone wrong. But we are gonna have Otto Octavius. Oh, yeah, and we're gonna have the Green Goblin be the lead of all of them. Not only that, I only said 4, we have 6. So we're also going to have Sandman and Hydro together, and we haven't seen them before because these guys are going to be part of a secret society called the Immortals, but we're only going to think that they are really not the Immortals, the Elementals. Sorry. So Hydro and Sandman, it's going to seem like it's these 2 guys we know, but they're actually part of this other society. And so Spider-Man is now up against something that he has never faced before, being outnumbered. Usually he takes on bad guys one-on-one, but now he has 6 people to beat. How's he gonna fix this? How is he gonna actually do this? Well, we're finally gonna get the thing that we've been waiting to see. We are going to get the symbiote suit come in at just the right time. Now, they are good.
Thank you. Oh.
Now, they are going to need to kind of show this in such a way because the only way, oh yeah, here you go. So the only way for them to really come forward and get people to, actually I'm gonna need some of that. Now, the only way for them to come forward and really see like the power of the symbiote suit is for him to take down all of the Sinister Six with the suit, but then for him to take them all down again without it. Okay, because now you see like how powerful Spider-Man really is. Thank you. And he is like, you think the suit is just making him more powerful, but it's also making him more dark because like we have 2 to 3 movies where we're just seeing him just be inundated with so much stress, and like it's enough to make any person really just go off. But that symbiote suit is going to be something that's reflective of just like, okay, like we love Peter Parker for all the good sides of him, but he has a dark side. Like we as the audience are being taken on this journey. But ultimately, the symbiote suit is going to he's going to get rid of the suit, but it's going to go on someone else. Now, remember I mentioned before, this is going to be different than how we are usually used to seeing this. So instead of it being Eddie Brock, Peter Parker's longtime rival at the Daily Bugle, the symbiote suit is actually going to go to Harry Osborn. Okay, so we haven't really seen the Venom suits. We never actually really seen Venom as Harry Osborn, like except for like some what ifs. So now we're going to get a real big rival coming to you in phase 2. But we're not done with phase 1 yet. So phase 2, the end of phase 2 is going to be the Avengers of the Spider-Man movies, okay? It's going to be called Spider-Man Clone Wars. So we're going to end phase 1 the same way we began it, with Spider-Man saying, oh my gosh, there's some other Spider-Man guy out here. Turns out it's not Chameleon, because that guy's locked away. But it ends up being Ben Reilly, a.k.a. the Scarlet Spider. Ben Reilly ends up being a Spider-Man clone, and he doesn't really know that he's a clone, but he thinks that he is the real Peter Parker. But it turns out this whole time that behind the scenes, in addition to J. Jonah Jameson trying to stop Spider-Man through means of other means of force, he's been trying to clone him so that he also has a Spider-Man agent himself. Because if Spider-Man can take down all these people, there must be something special about Spider-Man. And so then they actually succeed in making a Spider-Man clone. Not just one clone, but 5 of them. Oh, that's for the TV series. We're going to get there soon. Now, the very first Spider-Man clone we have is Ben Reilly, and he's a good-natured guy, and he's trying to take down Spider-Man because he thinks that Peter Parker Spider-Man is a clone, but really, it's him. Now, I don't know what Sony has to do to make this happen, but I'm telling you, if we don't get these 3 people cast, then you've wasted all your money and resources on what would be the perfect thing. So, the clone, so basically it's going to be Spider-Man, and then he is going to be... they're both going to be in masks, okay? So you have Spider-Man, we have Ben Reilly. Both their costumes are different. Spider-Man, traditional red webbed and blue, but then Ben Reilly, he's going to have that classic red onesie, and then he's going to have that blue hoodie, and it's going to look amazing. And then he takes off his mask, and it's none other than Tobey Maguire. What? The original movie Spider-Man is going to be one of the clones. And then we're also going to get another Spider-Man clone who is basically wearing the Spider-Man 2099 suit, but it's not going to be Miguel O'Hara because that's a whole other storyline that we're probably going to unlock in phase 3. But it's going to be Andrew Garfield. Yeah, Andrew Garfield is going to be wearing a Spider-Man 2099 suit, but he's not from the future. He actually ends up being a very young Benjamin Parker. Uncle Ben. He's going to be a young Uncle Ben sent to help out Spider-Man. Aww. It's going to be so sweet, right? Who would have thought that would have been the thing? And then we're going to have a couple other Spider-Man clones who are going to come through. And the main Spider-Man that we are going to be looking at in this is not necessarily a Spider-Man clone, but a Spider-Man successor, Miles Morales. So we're going to end this series, which is basically a brand new day for Spider-Man, because previously, very much like Spider-Verse, Peter Parker thought that he was alone. But not only does he have another clone and a father figure that he thought was long lost, but he also has a protege. So Miles Morales comes in and is introduced in this series. And then basically they team up together to take down the new Venom, who is Harry Osborn. And not only that, but Harriet Osborn has also venomized all of the Sinister Six. So you have a Sinister Six venomized rogues gallery that is just unheard of. And they're able to take them down together. And after that, they disband, and then we are set up for their individual film series. So simultaneously to the Spider-Man movies, we also get the Miles Morales Spider-Man standalone series. We also get the Scarlet Spider, also known as Ben Reilly, Spider-Man series. And you also get something that I think would be really fun, Peter Porker, the pig version of Spider-Man. He has these animated shorts that play before each movie because I just think that he's a delight and people would love to have him in there. So that concludes Phase 1. So Phase 2 is the new Age of Spiders. Like I said, we're going to have all of these standalone movies, but we're also going to introduce some of the Spider Women inside of this Spider-Man mythos. So check this out. So in the movies we've had Spider-Gwen, but we also haven't really seen one of my other favorite spider people, which is Silk. So Silk was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter Parker, except this government agency found her and locked her up, basically, so that they could have their own spider weapon to use in case Spider-Man ever came after the government. But basically, this happened in the 90s, so she just only knows 90s references, and that's one of my favorite things. So we'll introduce Silk inside of Phase 2. We'll also introduce Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, and we're going to go off of the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline and have her actually be one of the clones from the Spider-Man Clone Wars. And she's going to have her own standoff series. And because I've always loved Felicia Hardy, I think that she needs her own standalone series. I think that it would be great. Basically, imagine if they had a Catwoman standalone film and series. It would just be so much fun to watch because she's just a thief. She's like an anti-hero, so she would just be robbing and stealing all these different jewels, but occasionally help save the day and all these other things. I think that would be really, really great. But then, so that would be the Phase 2, which we have just a new Age of Spider. So we have Silk, we have Felicia Hardy, we have Spider-Woman, we also have Scarlet Spider, we have the Peter Porker shorts, and we have the Miles Morales. That's 7 different movies. Then it's all going to culminate together at the end of Phase 2, which will be Spider-Verse. So it's going to be similar to kind of what we've seen with the current animated Spider-Verse, but they are going to further expand the webs. So here's one of my favorite things. We are going to see all of these. So we're going to see Madam Web, who has a different tie to all the different spider people throughout space and time. We are going to see the 2099 Miguel O'Hara Spider-Man. We're also going to see one of my favorite spider people, Spiders-Man, which is just a collection of actual spiders who think that they're Peter Parker and they all inhabit this Spider-Man suit. It's going to be a laugh and a half. We're also going to see Spider-Man Noir. We're going to see one storyline where Peter Parker never became super. He just got this abnormal radioactive spider. He got this abnormal bite, but it never gave him powers. He's just like a kid with a spider bite. But he's still trying to do the right thing and still be Peter Parker without the abilities, and it's going to be really, really good. And then we're also going to see her for a minute, but then we are going to tease out the rest of her story. So it's kind of like a future forward kind of thing happening. We're going to meet Spider-Girl, who is actually Mayday Parker, who is Peter Parker's daughter. Yeah. So we're going to see that more in Phase 3. But they're all going to come together and they're going to take down this otherworldly collection of race. I can't remember their names, but they basically just eat all spider people.
Who does Spider-Man have Spider-Girl with?
I'm glad you asked. So, meanwhile, while all these cinematic movies are happening, we have the TV shows. So the TV shows, so Spider-Girl, Mayday Parker, is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Who's MJ? We never get enough. She's only ever seen as Peter Parker's love interest, but she is so amazing and interesting as a character, she needs her own series. So while all these things are happening, we don't see Mary Jane until the middle of phase 2. Meanwhile, her whole life story is happening independently in a short-run TV series. So this can last for up to 2 to 3 seasons, but we're just following MJ. We don't see Spider-Man until it's time to introduce him and her in the movies, okay? Meanwhile, remember, I told you the whole J. Jonah Jameson thing is happening. While he, runs for office, he doesn't win that election, but one of the businesses that he owns is the Bugle. We're gonna have a whole TV series dedicated to the Bugle, and again, Sony has to spend all their money and resources on casting the only J. Jonah Jameson that has ever existed, and that is J.K. Simmons. If they don't get him, all of this falls apart, and you have really, pun always intended, a tangled web of things that people just aren't going to want to see. And so, like I said, we have all these spinoffs, but ultimately, when it comes to Spider-Man, Peter Parker does need to grow up, and we're going to get the same actor from phase 1 all the way through phase 3, and that's where we come to phase 3. It's going to be the conclusion of the Peter Parker saga as we currently know it. But we're going to do it in a couple of different ways. We're going to leave audiences to decide what they want to be their ending for Peter Parker. So we're going to do a one-off called Old Man Parker, where basically it is an Old Man Logan version of Peter Parker, except the radioactivity, it's radioactive. Like they said it from day one, and he's actually become toxic to the people that he loves. And so a lot of people have died because of their interaction with Peter Parker and his radioactivity. But it's like the year 2099, and somehow Peter Parker, the radioactivity has allowed him to have a much larger and longer lifespan. So he's not only outlived a lot of people, but he's also become kind of toxic. And so we're going to have a big bad come up, and Miguel O'Hara is going to try to find the original Peter Parker, the original Spider-Man. And it's kind of going to have this Batman Beyond kind of feel to it. So you have mentor Peter Parker, who is going to be mentoring the new Miguel O'Hara, who's going to be Spider-Man 2099. It's going to be a passing of the torch, and it's going to be beautiful. We're also going to explore, so that's like happens in 2099, 100-something years into the future, or almost 100, math. But then we're also going to get the origin story for Spider-Girl Mayday Parker. And that's going to be our next step. So basically this is going to happen over the course of several years. Peter Parker's not going to be high school age. So we're going to follow someone else which is going to be his daughter. During this storyline, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, they're happily married. Peter Parker actually loses a limb. He actually loses a limb due to one big fight of him and Mary Jane actually trying to get their baby Mayday Parker out of some danger of a very old, now long forgotten Harry Osborn, who was Venom, actually the very first Venom, and then ultimately he does go on to being Agent Venom. He has some tackles with some anti-Venom. I think the Venom franchise could do something well itself, but again, it's all part of this whole spider web of stories. But then he ultimately does lose a leg, and he realizes, he basically takes this as a sign that he needs to finally hang up his tights and just be normal. And he tries to raise Mayday with no knowledge that her dad was Spider-Man. Well, it's her 15th birthday, and we're gonna have like Sabrina the Teenage Witch style, like, hey, your abilities have come into play now, and now you have to decide what you want to do. So Spider-Girl starts, and then we start our whole Spider-Girl saga inside of phase 3. So we basically see the future end of Peter Parker's story. We also get an older, like the current day, because this is going to happen in a couple of years, over the course of several years. And then we have, Papa Spider-Man teaching Spider-Girl all that he knows, the best that he can, but while still allowing her to make her own mistakes. So it's basically the same Peter Parker relationship that he has had with Aunt May, except Aunt May finally knows in this version. And so we have that. We also have all these other Spider People movies where we have like Silk, Silk 2, Silk 3. We have Felicia Hardy 2 and 3. And we have Spider-Woman. We also have Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2099, which is being started out and set up in here to take on his own little future adventures without the need of having Peter Parker, because we have all of these other Parker stories at play. If we go back a little bit, I really think that the Miles Morales story, which is still relatively new, has a lot of possibility, especially if Sony does what they need to do. Whatever deals or arrangement that you did to make Spider-Man Homecoming a possibility, make these same conversations possible to bring Miles Morales into the Avengers. Then you have access to a lot of really great interactions. Like in the comic history, Spider-Man has a long interaction with the Fantastic Four, a franchise that just keeps on getting rebooted. If we bring Miles Morales into not necessarily the MCU, but into a version of the Avengers, we could then potentially have the Fantastic Four interact with Spider-Man a little bit more. We could also widen the scope and allow for different things to happen. Like several classic Spider-Man event comics, Secret Wars. We could have the Spider Island, where everyone in New York gets Spider-Man abilities because of the Jackal. We need to introduce Jackal way back in Phase 2 just so that he comes back, because he constantly comes back. He's like, oh yeah, that's right, it's the Jackal. I completely forgot about him. And then when we do that, if Miles Morales is in the Avengers, that means that we can have Jessica Drew also be a part of the Avengers, because in the comics, Jessica Drew kind of acts as a mentor to Miles Morales, because her and Parker, if we go with the clone version, she's still older than Miles, and he still can have that kind of mentor relationship. And also Madam Web. I think that Madam Web is basically going to be like the Nick Fury of all of these Spider movies, because she knows when to come into the right time and place to pluck out these different Spider People from alternate universes and everything. And I'd say that the Bugle TV show can go on for really as long as they want to keep J.K. Simmons on. I'm saying 6 seasons in the movie. I think that's my personal proper length for them to be able to tell that kind of story. And I also think that we should be going into some more deep cuts. Like, they just need to come in with collaborations. Like, Daredevil needs to come into the Spider-Man storylines. Like, they have a lot of similarities. And I think that their partnership could go well. They could bring in Blade, because Blade is a vampire, and Spider-Man has come into a lot of interactions with Morbius, and I think that could be really cool for them to do like a Halloween theme. Like, again, they have so many different Spider people to tell stories with, but they also have different tones and themes. Like, not all Spider-Man stories are like super plucky teenage guy does the right thing. It's hard, and he has a lot of challenges, and he keeps on finding the strength to get up and fight all these different foes. So I think that that's really the best approach for them to go with all the Spider-Man stories. So in conclusion, I really think that Phase 1, 2, and 3 is a good starting point for the Spider-Man mythos to be expanded out in multimedia, not just movies and TV, but we have just such a rich story of all of the Spider people to tell stories for years, and Sony can just keep printing money by focusing only on my favorite friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
What was the question?
I really like Spider-Verse.
Jamie, do you need anything? We're gonna head out.
Oh, well, I can actually follow you guys out. That's not a problem.
I can start with Phase 4 if you like. I mean, this is just the setup.
Well, I think the
Did you park in the front lawn?
Yeah, I did. I sure did. Great.
But I didn't tell you about Aunt May's spider character. She becomes a Spider Woman in another Earth. But if you really think about it, she had to have known something, right? Like she had to have known that something was going on with Peter Parker. So in the background, she actually becomes a nighttime vigilante known as the Prowler. Because that's what she ends up becoming a thief for hire to be able to help out Peter Parker the best way that she knows how. But it's a little bit out there, but I think that it could really work.